How fire-safe landscaping can be beautiful. Now, Anne, I understand that this fire-safe landscape is divided up into zones. So you have 4 different zones that exemplify different places in the landscape around your home?
That's correct. There's 4 zones, and then what it does is goes obviously from zone 1 through 4. Zone 1 is 0 to 30 feet from the house. Zone 2 is 30 to 50 feet from the house. Zone 3 is that 50 to 70 feet from the house, and Zone 4 is that 70 to 100. That's considering 100-foot defensible space or, clearance around your house.
Okay, but we're actually out in Zone 4, which is the one that's farthest away from your house right now.
Correct.
And this is the one that shows what exactly?
This zone, being the furthest one away from the house, is the zone where it's the native plant zone. This is the zone that's the transition between your landscaping, your fire-safe landscaping, and the natural landscaping.
Okay, so this is actually more like modified nature. You've come in here and cleared out some of the deadwood and such?
Correct. What you do is you thin out the native vegetation so that there's some spacing or some clearance around that. You're maintaining your oak trees, your native oaks in the area. You're probably thinning out about half of the vegetation, native vegetation in this area, shrubs, that sort of thing. And you're cutting down the grasses. It's probably annual grasses more than perennial grasses in this area. So you're cutting those down to the ground. The idea is to reduce the total volume of vegetation from a fire burning outside in that native landscaping onto your landscaped area.
Zone 4 is the wildland zone. This is the transition from the native landscape. Native plants should be well spaced apart and cleared up off the ground. Clearance between groups of plants is very important in the fire-resistant landscape. These rock roses are kept low, and the oaks above are limbed up high so they don't create fire ladders, places where flames can go from plant to plant to plant, rising up into the canopy.
This zone 3 is the 50 to 70 feet from the house, and this is kind of a Mediterranean sort of landscape.
I do notice that you have a lot of low plants in here. They have low fuel volume. A lot of them have leathery leaves on them.
Correct.
And what are other characteristics of fire-resistant plants?
The ability to hold water, the more fleshy sorts of leaves, like you're saying, plants that don't have a lot of oils in them.
Okay.
Their barks tend to be smoother bark. Some of these Mediterranean plants have a rougher sort of bark, but they have the leathery sorts of leaves.
But I notice that there's not like any pine trees, there's no eucalyptus, there's things like that, which are really volatile plants because they're very resinous.
And that is the problem with those trees, is they have a high amount of pitch and oils in them that are highly flammable.
Zone 3 is the transition zone. This is the zone between the garden above and the wildland below. It should have less flammable, low-fuel plants such as lavender, santolina, and salvia. Now, Anne, I noticed as we walk into Zone 2, which is near the house, that it gets much lusher.
It's a more highly irrigated area, but it's still low water use. This kind of circle area that we're looking at kind of is a demonstration of ground covers that are low water use ground covers and still fire resistant.
You've got the beautiful green dietes, but again, there's not a lot of fuel here. You've cleaned up around underneath the trees. I see that we have aloes and the beautiful Natal plum over there. That's a really nice one. I like that one a lot.
Yeah, and this area too uses succulents. Succulents have the ability to hold water in their leaves. I mean, they're great for fire resistive.
And they really hold up against the flames. I know that they will have a tendency just to kind of melt over instead of catching a light right away.
There's so much water in them that you can't evaporate all of the water.
Right.
So they're very helpful.
Zone 2 is the green belt. It contains wide groups of colorful perennials, ground covers, succulents, and deciduous trees. Wide paths between the plantings create fire breaks. And we're in the last zone, the zone closest to the house.
Correct. And this is the zone that has the most highly resistive plants in it. And it is the zone that has the most irrigation or utilizes the most water of the low-use water.
So this is basically the garden zone. And you have a lot of really pretty plants here. Like I see that we have the beautiful Natal plum here with its fragrant flowers. We have gazanias. We even have a lawn in this area. I also notice that we have several things that are very fire resistant, like all the rocks and the gravel paths.
Yeah, the focus of this area is to look at what we call hardscaping, or like you said, the rocks, to look at paths that are non-flammable paths. One of the things that you want to also look at is that your ground covers within the first 30 feet, or the zone 1 of the house, are fire resistant.
Zone 1 is the lush garden zone closest to your home. It should have well-watered plantings of annuals, vegetables, lawns, and succulents. There should be patios and wide paths, but no wooden decks and no flammable materials.
People don't think about maintenance of a landscape. They plant it and they say, oh, look at this, nice lush vegetation, but they don't really look at maintaining their landscape for fire safety.
Plants in the fire-safe landscape should be healthy and actively growing. Plants that are getting old and woody should probably be replaced with brand new ones. Fire-resistant landscapes don't just protect you and your home, they also protect the people who respond to a fire, which could be me.